was taking an Uber like a year ago with this, and the Uber driver is like a Presbyterian minister. We started talking, and in my head I was like, okay, well, like what do I, like who am I? What do I call myself? And I was just like, I told him, I'm like, I'm an optimistic nihilist. And he just started laughing. He's like, what the hell does that mean? Well, then, like, what do you believe? And I was just like, I don't believe anything. I should have brought my master's degree in religious studies just to like have her back here. I just got it in the mail this week because they never sent it to me. I was like, just send it to me. It's like, I don't really want it, but I should have it, you know? I mean, so I grew up in a very traditional and conservative house, as we were all homeschooled. So most of our socialization was with kids from church and adults from church. I applied to this place called the Moody Bible Institute, and pretty much only because they didn't charge tuition. And because at that moment I think I was still like, okay, well, like this is a community that I understand, like I get this like Christian community and I can like be a part of it. It was terrible for the most part. Don't ask any questions, don't challenge anyone, don't think differently. And yeah, so I ended up there for 4 years. I left Chicago, moved to Pittsburgh. I waited tables for a while. I worked in marketing for a little while, and then I got a job at an Anglican church working with a friend of mine, doing kids programs. And then I ended up being there for like 3 years. So I actually went and did a Master of Arts in Religious Studies at an Anglican seminary, and which looking back now is still crazy to me. But I think that was a very similar experience too, where I just like, the longer I was there, the more I realized I didn't fit. I was like, I keep putting myself in these spaces and in these situations and in jobs and in schools where I just like don't belong. I kind of just realized I'm like, I just don't belong here. And I think I just like didn't really connect with what was happening. Like, do I want to go sit in a room and like have somebody talk at me for an hour and then like sing a bunch of songs that I don't like? It's like the opposite of what I want to do on a Sunday morning. So, you know, and people want to argue that like, unless you have like a very strict like religious ethic, you have no ethic. But I don't know. You know, people who have very strict religious ethics do all sorts of terrible things all the time. In the book of Ezekiel, there's a passage where the prophet Ezekiel is being like taken in visions like around this city. They have like whores in the temple court, and they're like gambling in the depths of the temple. There's like all this like stuff happening. God tells Ezekiel, I'm going to send a man into the city with basically with a marker, and like he's going to mark everyone who's like speaking out against the evil. And then I'm going to call some barbarians into the city, and they're going to kill literally everyone else. Doesn't matter, like old, women, children, like doesn't matter if they don't have the mark, just basically like without reservation, slaughter everyone. And I was just like reading this, and I'm just like, what? I'm like, this is some pretty like next level, like war crimes kind of stuff. And so I would like ask professors and classmates about this. They just like didn't have any sort of compelling answer. And I was like, man, there's like, and you find that all through the Old Testament. It's just like unbelievable violence. And then you go from that, you go to the New Testament. God is like super chill and like loves everybody, and this is the same God. And it's like, well, how do you reconcile those two things where it's like, yeah, we shouldn't kill people, but God kills like tons of people all the time in the Old Testament and commands people to kill people, and then how do you reverse that? And and it's just like when I started like delving into some of these issues that brought up questions for me, when I started to go for the answers, it's like, well, there's 50 answers, and they're all like compelling if you keep them within their own like logical framework. But as soon as you remove them from that framework, they make absolutely no sense. So they're probably all wrong. I mean, I think the reality that I came to, and I think this came from being at Moody and growing up in these places where like everyone was so certain about everything. And I just got to a point where I was like, the level of certainty that you all have makes me very uncomfortable. And then I realized, I'm like, I'm not certain about anything, so I'm just gonna stay there. So, optimistic nihilist. I just like, I don't know what's true, but I want to like have a really good time. I'm like the happiest I've ever been. So I plan on staying where I am as long as I can manage it.
There goes a good citizen, an upright and true man. Seeing that boy walk out of here and knowing the kind of lad he is, well, it makes you feel kind of warm and happy inside, like saving a life.